Hi, welcome back. Guess what? I'm finally going to talk about Descent into Avernus. It's been a long time. I know a lot of people have asked me consistently why and when will I review this book, and I've kind of left this to the very end. Again, I have been shocked by this book in many ways, and I have good things and bad things to say. My suggestion to you is make sure you have a drink, some food, get comfortable, and we will get into this and give you as much information as I possibly can and cover all the things that you need to know or all the things you don't really need to know. Okay? This is going to be fairly quick. I am going to try to do this without losing my voice, which is going to be very difficult because I have definitely got the winter problems going right now. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Specifically the topic for today, this is a book review. Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus is hell. This is a review. Now, I have not done this particular book review for a number of different reasons, of which I had a very poor opinion of this book. When I saw it, I really didn't feel like it. It was the book for me. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not the book for you, but I'm going to go into more detail and break it down for you because I spent quite a bit of time having a good deep look at this book and to try and understand what was going on. And frankly, I don't think you can do that by just having a cursory look at this book, because there is far more going on than there probably should be going on, and therefore it gets quite complicated. So that's why it's taken me a while to get through this. Anyway, get comfortable. We are going to go into this in a lot of detail. For those of you who wanted it, you've got it. This is a review of Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus, the adventure book for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. It's been out for a while. I think you will find it be kind of a bit difficult to purchase the book now. I found that you can't really find it in anywhere that much. Certainly on Amazon, you're really looking at, can't buy it through Amazon. You can't buy it online easily. So it's sort of disappeared off the market to a certain degree. I wonder why that is. I suspect because a lot of books have been purchased and it's kind of hasn't been reprinted because it's sold out. Maybe that's what's going on here. So why is this adventure book hell? Or is it hell? Here are my thoughts. When I was looking at the cover art, even when I first saw the book, the cover art tells the story of a fallen angel that has gone to hell and lost their magic sword. That's the first thing that popped into my mind when I saw the image on the front. I actually like the standard cover. I think the standard cover is pretty good. And it's an awesome and provocative image. And it tells pretty much all the story that you need to know. But the story is far more complicated than the front image, although the front image is trying to tell as much as possible. The artwork overall is amazing. It's very gritty. It's got a darkness to it that you can feel. There are deep red landscapes, titanic battles between demons and devils. And you've certainly got an element of the Mad Max, Fury Road, Beyond the Thunderdome, vehicles on a desert wasteland. There's certainly that going on as well in terms of some of the artwork that you come across. Of course, demons and devils play a big part, certainly devils in particular. There is a pronunciation guide. It's very helpful. It has multiple variations on how to pronounce certain words when it's appropriate. So apparently there's actually more than one way to say certain words. Not all of them. It's not like it covers every single thing. There are certain words that you can pronounce slightly differently. Now, I suspect that's because Dungeons & Dragons is an American product, and North America or America uses modified English, and so therefore there might have been a couple of variations about how you can sort of pronounce something based on the fact that we've also got a number of people who are using non-modified English that aren't from America. So maybe that's what's going on here. But I thought it was very useful to include that in the front, and I like those when they do that because I struggled with pronouncing a lot of the words that they create. It's like Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, right back through the ages, has always come up with names that really don't make an awful lot of sense. They look good, but they are hard to say. Now, what I will say is this is an adventure that is morally twisted. It's a morally twisted campaign that should have a session 0. I'm usually not a should dungeon master. I'm usually the kind of dungeon master who says you could, or there's an options and you pick the option you like. But I think in this case you really should have a session 0, or even better yet, have a discussion before session 0, because you may not ever get into a situation where you get to run this adventure. You may well find that your players are not interested. I am of the view that this particular adventure appeals more to dungeon masters than it appeals to players. It's much like my desire to run a Dark Sun campaign. As a dungeon master, I love the idea, and my players don't like it. Players don't really like playing in Dark Sun because you're kind of taking away a lot of their toys. And also the kind of lethality that's going on, but not also just the lethality, but just the nature of the world. It's not vanilla Dungeons and Dragons. It's not your vanilla fantasy world. So you really do need to give them a heads up. Frankly, I think that would be the fair thing to do. So Dungeon Masters need to warn their players about the range of topics that are likely to come up in this adventure. I know that will mean you'll have to reveal a few things, okay? Because this adventure is not for everybody. It's much like, I say this about the Curse of Strahd, where the Curse of Strahd is a very gothic adventure, and not everybody's going to enjoy gothic dark horror. They're not really going to be into that sort of thing. That may not be the experience they want. And I feel like this certainly goes down that track. But I think, again, this is stepping over another boundary well beyond what the Curse of Strahd does. So that's why I'm saying you really need to have a session 0, and probably more likely a discussion before you even get to session 0. There are no inspiring or even good player character adventure hooks in this adventure. Now, I know there'll be a few people who are just like, what are you talking about? You don't know anything. Seriously, there are no inspiring or even good player character adventure hooks in here. There really aren't. Okay? And I will explain why I'm saying this. Because what has happened is the designers have resorted to strong arm tactics, okay, to force the characters to help the tyrannical flaming fists, or they get executed. This is the sort of thing that you do as a dungeon master when you cannot find or figure out a way to get your players invested in the adventure. And so you resort to the strong arm tactic and force them down that road, which of course often can result in blowback. So the character motivations are poorly conceived and could easily backfire on a dungeon master. I could see this coming to a situation where when the Flaming Fists say, we are incompetent, we can't deal with this, we can't solve this problem, you have to do it, and we're going to make you do it, and if you don't do it, we're going to kill you. What would I do as a player when a dungeon master does that, plays that at the game? I am probably going to try to take down the Flaming Fists and destroy them and burn them to the ground. And I think that's exactly what will tend to happen with the players. They will lose perspective about why they're supposed to be doing whatever the Flaming Fists are supposed to, wanting them to do. Trying to discover what happened to a city that disappeared, or what's going on with these particular cults, or eliminating these particular evil cults. They won't even be interested. All they'll focus on is these mercenary Flaming Fists and wanting to take them out, or just leaving the city. And frankly, that's what I would do as a player, and I wouldn't want to play anymore. So I find this tactically foolish in terms of a way of approaching this adventure. And that's the default. That is what they've got there for you. And it's going to cause so many problems. So many problems. I'm going to get back to all of this, trust me, I will, because there's more. Now, the Dark Secrets have advanced character development potential. Okay, there are some dark secrets in there that you players can pick up, and they really do lead to advanced character development, potentially. But ultimately, what I can see happening is they will be forgotten, or they will distract from the adventure without the Dungeon Master putting in some major intervention. Okay, major intervention from the Dungeon Master is required to actually make these dark secrets work. It's not just the players that need to play ball on this one, the Dungeon Master, and they are quite complicated. I like the fact that they are. I think the concept behind them is masterful and great. But trying to apply them to this adventure, it's not going to work the way you think it's going to work. I would say that about half of the Dark Secrets will likely lead to problems for everybody, players and Dungeon Masters, to try to work out. And the other half might actually work as intended with some help. Probably quite a bit of help, actually. My suspicion is that the Dark Secrets were meant to be a replacement for adventure hooks or an adventure hook section, where you would have like a range of different adventure hooks that try to get the players invested in doing this rather than putting their foot down and saying you have to do it. But I don't think they came up with anything, and I think this is what they've put in there as a substitute. So you really need to make it clear to your players that they're being press-ganged into doing this. And if they're characters and they're not going to play along with this, it's probably not going to work at your table. And you're going to have a very short campaign. I think that's much more likely as an extremely short campaign. Now that I've sort of torn asunder the very beginning of this, I would like to point out some of the rather unusual developments here. Things that I've been saying they should do for a very long time, and they did it in this adventure. All of the adventure chapters have a flowchart to explain to the Dungeon Master what's going on. And there's a summary in each chapter to help go with the flowchart. And I found that very, very useful. It also made it clear to me that there were significant problems with the story because there's so much going on. But all adventures should have something like this. A flowchart. We've seen a lot of this in the Storm King's Thunder. There are flowcharts in other adventures. They're quite sort of short. But this literally has an overall flowchart for the whole adventure. And then each chapter breaks up what's going on in that part of the adventure into its own flowchart again. So that means that you can actually find stuff and sort of understand how it all fits together. Now, this thing is sort of designed to be sort of sandboxy at the beginning and then funneled down to a more narrow linear path, and then to branch off into a fork so you can take one path, the demon path or the devil path. And you can take or leave a lot of the encounters or situations that they present to you. Not everything. And then ultimately at the end, the fork returns to one point. And there you play out your final scene, which is essentially the last chapter of the adventure. Now, I will say to you, when I was looking at this adventure book is actually quite short. There's a lot of, I would say at least 100 pages worth of backup material and information, because they've tried to include kind of like a source book with this adventure. So even though this adventure goes from level 1 to 13 apparently, or 13 or higher, this thing is probably going to wind up presenting you with a whole lot of additional stuff that isn't, I mean, it certainly can be used for this adventure, but you could easily just tear out and use somewhere else. So we're saying almost half the book is source book material rather than adventure, just to make you understand. The adventure side of things sort of finishes on a page 150 something. So, and there's 250-ish pages in this thing. So there's a lot of material that have nothing to do with actually laying out the adventure itself, but supporting material. what I would say is that Wizards of the Coast has gone to great effort. They've put a lot of effort and thought into trying to make this adventure easier to run. And I think the reason they did that is they knew that there were so many moving parts on this and it was so complicated that people would need that assistance to be able to run this thing, otherwise it would be unusable. Frankly, that is what I think is likely the reason why we saw so many flowcharts and why there's so much of a breakdown at each stage. Now, that's not to say that other adventure books do not have a summary of what takes place in that chapter of that adventure, because they do that, okay? But the flowchart makes a big difference. Okay, so let's talk about maps. There are black and white maps. They are clear. They are easy and simple to read. There is a colour map of Baldur's Gate inside the book, which is useful. It's double page, so it goes from one page to another. So there's 2 pages that include this. And it's all done by Dyson Logos and Mike Shaley. I think it's Shaley's map. They're pretty easy to copy and they're pretty easy to trace. Dyson is renowned for making maps that look very good, but they're still very simple, and so therefore fairly easy to copy. And that's an important factor. Unless, of course, you're using something like a virtual table and really, colour would be preferred. But that's not always the case. I know some people are fine with black and white. Now, one of the things I thought was interesting is there are 3 major locations in this book that probably needed to have a map. Now, there's a map for Baldur's Gate, and there's another map for another city, and then there's the Avernus map. And that's great. What I sort of see being a bit of a problem is that because the Baldur's Gate map is inside the book and covers 2 pages, it's kind of hard to sort of necessarily print it out and then provide it to your players. It's great for a dungeon master, but it's not something you can sort of pull out and just show to your players that easily unless you do it directly from the book. And because of that, I think you might find that the digital version of that map might be more useful than having the book. Just because I suspect that a lot of people will try to reuse Baldur's Gate, that map in particular, more than any of the other maps. Just because Baldur's Gate resonates with the market. To a large degree, I feel like this book was built and made with that title to try and sell the name Baldur's Gate, even though the adventure doesn't really take place in Baldur's Gate that much. It's only really from level 1 to 4, and then the rest of it is you're down on hell. So I feel like that's a nasty trick on Wizards of the Coast's part. They certainly figured out how to sell the book, but have they given people what they wanted? I don't know. We'll see. We'll soon find out as we go through this. Right. Baldur's Gate. There's a gazetteer. And I would have to say that the Baldur's Gate gazetteer is impressive. I would say it's very impressive. I would also say that why is there no gazetteer for Avernus? Like, the adventure takes place in Avernus quite a lot. There's a big map. And I think a lot of people would like to have more information on Avernus. So a gazetteer around that might have been, let's get real. Is the desire to run this adventure and play in this adventure to go and travel to Baldur's Gate, or to travel to the 9 Hells and go to Avernus? I guess it depends on who you are. I feel like there should have been a gazetteer for Avernus, and it's not there. Not really. Okay? For me, I think they are playing the card, Baldur's Gate, that's their selling point, and that's why we've got the gazetteer there. And I would have thought it would have been smarter to make an adventure that takes place solely in Baldur's Gate, and then have a gazetteer for it. But they haven't done that. So it's a very strange decision. All right. Baldur's Gate has character backgrounds. They are extremely beneficial, usually. Most of them are extremely beneficial if you pick them up while you're in Baldur's Gate. But they're absolutely useless once you leave the city. So in the first levels, you'll be fine because your background will play into that because you're in that city. After that, they mean nothing. They mean nothing. There is a new faceless background. It is intended to be a master of disguise, but it's rather confusing, and the dual personalities feature is poorly written. When you read through it and try to understand what it's trying to communicate to you, I read it 3 times and I'm like, is it me, or have they just put it down on paper poorly? And I at the end I decided it was because they were writing it in such a way that it was not that easy to understand, and it was poorly conceived and written. But its intention is to try to be a master of disguise. Not a master of disguise of all disguises, but only really of one disguise. So you have one alias that you can become, and then you have your normal persona, and there's this other persona that you can take on, and it's supposed to be so good that people can't really figure out who that is. So it's the concept is a partial master of disguise. I would still say that there is benefits in just sticking with the general backgrounds from the player's handbook and other supplements, rather than using the backgrounds that are provided in the adventure. But the reality is that the backgrounds that are in the adventure itself for Baldur's Gate are much better if you're in Baldur's Gate than the other ones. But once you leave Baldur's Gate, they'll do nothing for you. They're not going to help you outside of that city. And you're really only going to be there from level 1 to 4, basically. The storyline. The storyline and the plot is a hot mess. It's rather irrational. It's illogical. It's got complex twists and turns. It has so many moving parts, as I've said, and it makes no sense why anyone would actually play it. Now, I know there'll be people who are upset and it's like, this guy's stupid, doesn't know what he's talking about. Yes, I have not run the adventure. I haven't actually run the adventure. But as a dungeon master, there's a couple of things that you need to understand. This book is written to appeal to dungeon masters, not to players. It's one of the things that I couldn't place my finger on what was wrong with this, because structurally it seems good. How it's laid out, flow charts, stuff like that, constructed in a way that you thought, well, man, they're giving me a lot of the things I needed, and there's still choice, so what's wrong with it? And I couldn't place my finger on it. I really couldn't figure out what was going on. What I realized was it still fails to deliver the whole package. It's delivering the package that a dungeon master, there'll be specific dungeon masters who will look at this and say, wow, man, this is right outside of my comfort zone. I want to try this. I think it would appeal very much to people who have been homebrewing for years and never run any pre-made adventures, and they would see this book and say, man, this is cutting edge sort of stuff. It's taking it to the next level. For them, they would pick up this adventure and they can fix all those problems because they've been homebrewing for years. And they wouldn't see it as a problem because structurally for them it's done, and all the other stuff is story based and hooking the players in, and they're probably very good at doing that already. But as a player, I don't know that I necessarily like the idea of playing in this adventure, because it brings up a whole lot of questions. And I'll get to that in a second. I want to go back to that and point out some of the problems I see with an adventure that presents so many questions for a player, and then the dungeon master has to try to answer those questions. But I'm not going to do that till the very end. The plot has too many holes for a dungeon master to fill, for me. I feel like there's so much work involved in trying to run this thing. even though it is structured. It seems to be structured really well. It actually looks like Dragon of Ice by a Peak in many respects. When you look at Dragon of Ice by a Peak, it looks like an easy adventure to run until you realize that there's a whole lot of stuff that you have to figure out and deal with. It's not the Lost Mine of Phandelver, where they pretty much hand you everything, okay? Having characters discover what happened to the city of elturel, and then stopping Baldur's Gate from being sucked into Avernus as well as elturel, and then rescuing elturel from Avernus, and then redeeming a fallen angel, Zariel, by finding her magic sword. It is bonkers. As a story, it is absolutely bonkers. Now, I think that's why it appeals to a lot of people. It is because it is so bonkers. It jumps over. It is not like the other adventures that Wizards of the Coast has put out. Frankly, I was quite surprised that they put out something like this at all. But they did, okay? And so what I've done is I've just told you the whole story, basically, and then broken it down, and I've just taken out sort of the linking features. I haven't talked about NPCs or anything like that. I've just told you the major plot points for the whole thing. Now, at each step, you can fail to redeem Zariel, the fallen angel. You can fail to bring back elturel. You could probably even fail to save Baldur's Gate in this adventure. All that is certainly possible, like any adventure, but there are at least 3 major things that need to be done. And it is possible to succeed at none of them, succeed at one of them, and fail the other 2. Entirely possible. Now, when an adventure does that, that's a good thing, okay? I am not going to give it a hard time for that. I think that's a good thing. But when there's 3 different things that are going on, it's a bit much if you ask me. Okay, let's talk about the appendixes. Appendix A details diabolical deeds with devils. It is surprisingly comprehensive for such a complex topic. Something like forming a contract with a devil, how it works, what happens if you don't deliver, what sort of benefits you get, all that sort of stuff. That's all there. It's very, very comprehensive. I thought it was very useful for somebody who needed more information about how to run devils. And at the front of the adventure book, there's a lot of guidance around how to roleplay a devil, which is good. And I give it a thumbs up. It's done very well there. Okay. Appendix B has the infernal war machines rule. So this is the big selling point, right? Infernal war machines, Mad Max in hell. That was the selling point for this thing. So it has rules for the crew, for the types of actions that you would take as a crew, how you deal with fuel, which is soul coins. Now that's a topic in itself, because I can imagine there's a few people who will be very upset about the concept of burning up even an evil soul in a vehicle like this. So you may want to look at a different type of fuel, or you might want to keep it and they just got to walk everywhere by foot, which is probably not a very good idea. Then you've got vehicle mishaps, you've got armor upgrades, you've got alternative weapons, you've got what happens if they crash, so crashing into something, running over creatures, repairing, magical gadgets, having a chase on Avernus, so actually driving around and having a chase. That's all discussed there. There are charts and so forth, and of course you get 4 vehicle stat blocks. One is basically a motorbike, another is a dune buggy, there's a bus, and there's a truck, basically. And they have a whole lot of armaments that will certainly appeal to your players. I think this is probably one of the biggest draws for this book. So you could easily take a lot of this and just port it over to your adventure, and seriously, it would be awesome. You could do whatever you wanted with it, and you could probably add a lot to it as well. Okay. So what I would say is this is one of the best aspects of the book, and can easily be transplanted to different campaigns. So if you wanted infernal war machines or just war machines, this is the book to have, right? Okay, Appendix C is a small range of very unique magic items that include a battle stand of infernal power, gauntlets of flaming fury, hellfire weapons, an infernal puzzle box, how soul coins can be used, and also the sword of Zariel. And there's another item there that's a shield. I'm not going to talk about that, but it's a major part of the story. Okay, it is a major part of the story. What I usually, as my response to magic item sections, is I always look at them and I think, okay, fine, more stuff for the players, makes them more powerful. But what I like about these magic items, unlike a lot of other sections that I've seen in other adventure books, is they're really clever magic items that stand out as story driven. They have a story to them. And if they don't have a story already connected into the text itself that explains, why it exists and what its purpose is, you can see that it would actually add to the story quite significantly. So that's why I have talked about those items in particular. And I've left out the shield because I'm going to leave out something, okay? But I think almost all of those magic items, I think there's just 2 or 3 that I thought were like standard stuff. Standard stuff, okay, all right. All the rest are outstanding as magic items in terms of what they do. And those sections that describe what they do often are quite long. They're not really small paragraphs. For those of you who are wondering, okay, is it nice and simple? No, most of those magic items are quite complicated in how they actually work. Right? So if you're wanting something that was complicated and story-driven, those magic items will certainly do it. And you could use any one of those in a different campaign other than this one if you wanted to. And I think it would add quite a lot. You could build an entire adventure around almost all of those magic items. Okay, Appendix D is full of bizarre creatures, gruesome monsters and fiends. The monster stat blocks aren't anything special, and really are what you would expect from the monster manual for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. So I didn't see anything that was outstanding. I didn't see any sort of development in monster mechanics there that I thought was really good. I feel like a lot of them... devils are usually pretty hard to deal with because they have so many immunities and because you can't hurt them with fire. Fire is like, fireball's not going to work very well in a place like Avernus. And if it was your group's go-to solve everything, fireball, it's not going to work. So they're going to have to rely on something else. And that's the only aspect of it. What I will say is, usually I'm disappointed by the monster section of an adventure book because there's usually a lot of stuff there that doesn't really appeal to me that much. But I really felt like this section was done extremely well. Even some of the monsters that are just done for good fun. And the Holophant is certainly an example of that. The Holophant will be a character you'll come across called Lulu. I thought they were really, really well done. Appendix E. Appendix E is the infernal rapture menu. It is probably by far the strangest handout I have ever seen in a Wizards of the Coast product. When I saw this, I was like, seriously? Are we going to Avernus and going to a restaurant and going to be eating infernal stuff? Is there a meal? Is this high dining in the world of the Nine Hells? Is this what they get to feed off? So it is extremely odd. It is designed specifically to be a player handout. For those of you who are looking at it and thinking, okay, yeah, just photocopy that thing and give it to your players. So when you have a restaurant and they just stop for some food, they're going to go and do a bit of a coffee run or something like that. This is what you're going to pull out and present to them. I can just see their faces as they come across this thing. Should be good for a laugh. Anyway, Appendix F has story concept art on Avernus. Most of it is Avernus and devils, which is really interesting but not really vital to a Dungeons and Dragons adventure book. I know they did something like this in Princes of the Apocalypse, which I thought was interesting, but it takes up space. Does it add to what I needed from the book? Or could I have done with just giving me more artwork to show to my players? Because a lot of this artwork you can't really show to your players because it crosses over stuff. I feel like it is put there for the Dungeon Master and nobody else. Even because some of it's so incomplete, you can't really photocopy it and cut it out and just show images to your players. So I feel like it was really a wasted effort. There are Dungeon Masters who like that sort of thing, and I like the idea of concept art. I just don't like it in that book. I would prefer concept art in its own book. That's just me. I want my adventure book to actually give me tools. And I can't use this really for anything, this concept art. Appendix G has infernal script for a Dungeon Master to use to make up player handout documents. Basically, the script, what it looks like, it's all been translated for you. It's there. As a Dungeon Master, you can just go through and create it. So it means you can make up ciphers and so forth, or create documents that players can try to figure out. So, if they don't know the language that well and they've got this, they can then take a document that they've been given that's written in infernal and decipher it, particularly if your players don't have anybody who is proficient with the language of the devils. So I see that's why it's there. I like the idea of its inclusion. I do think that it's going to make it. I was trying to think about how easy. Some of that script is quite complicated. How easy is it for a Dungeon Master to actually translate that into their own document? I think it would be very, very difficult. I think that you would probably be better to get digital forms of it off D&D Beyond or wherever else you can find it. D&D Beyond, I think, is the legal way of doing it. But it has a use for it. So there's a lot. The appendix has got a lot of stuff. It's been put there. A lot of player handouts, a lot of really interesting mechanics and information. So I would say this is one of the strongest appendixes in any adventure book I've ever seen. Frankly, I thought it was very, very impressive. Time for the really, really bad or ugly. There is no index. There is no index in this adventure. It's a reference book. This is consistent as a trend for Wizards of the Coast. They just don't put appendixes in any of their books. The very few books do they ever put an appendix in there. It is a failure that they keep repeating, and an appendix is great, but an index is vital for trying to take all the pieces that are scattered and bring them together so they're easy to find. And I think that would have been quite useful in this case, because there are also a lot of stat blocks right throughout the entire book that are not just at the back of the book in the appendix. As you flick through the book, you'll find stat blocks for NPCs and so forth, and they're not at the back of the book, so they're not in one place. Therefore, you'd have to page mark them so you know where they are when you need to use them, particularly if they don't they don't come into play specifically when you're looking through that section of the book. That's why we have an index, and they've failed to do it again. So I'm having my wine, big thumbs down. Wizards of the Coast, get it together, give yourself a bit more time, spend a bit more money. And an index doesn't take up that many pages, and it's hugely useful to Dungeon Masters. There is a colour pull-out poster map. It is double-sided with the city of elturel and Avernus on the other side. No, the pull-out map is not Baldur's Gate. It's elturel and Avernus. Okay, all right. So therefore, that's why I'm mentioning that the map in the book, although quite large, because it covers 2 pages, it does make it a bit difficult to sort of present to your players unless you just open up the book and show the players that way. But you might need the book. This is why we have handouts. And photocopying it might not necessarily be that easy. But They get bonus points for making sure they have a double-sided map, and they've given you 2 locations of importance. So that's good. The general overview, look, I would say the general overall layout of the book is back to front. Now, what do I mean by that? So with the tools that you need at the beginning of the book, they're at the end of the book. But they can also be easily and quickly found in the contents page if you realize that's how it's been structured. So things like your background, those background options, they're in the Baldur's Gate gazetteer, which is near the end of the book, not the front of the book. The dark secrets are at the end of the book in the appendix, not the front of the book, which I thought would be a smarter place to locate them rather than put them there. Now, if you read through the entire thing, there is a couple of sections, are very small, that do indicate that you need to refer to those sections, or that you can refer to those sections. But if you are skim reading this thing, you may miss them, and therefore that could create a bit of a problem. So I'm not happy with the fact that that's how they've laid out the book in terms of putting some of the stuff at the end rather than at the beginning of the book. This adventure, I would say, is suitable for experienced dungeon masters. So not just experienced dungeon masters, I would say experienced players that can handle this degree of complexity and moral excavation. I don't know how else to describe it. We're really looking at ethical and moral excavation, where you deep dive. And if you have hang-ups, or you have issues in here like destroying the souls and dealing with devils and making deals with them and so forth like that, you will struggle. I think you will struggle with dealing with the content of this adventure book. This is not a beginner or intermediate adventure, certainly not for dungeon masters or players, in my opinion. I would say this book is far more challenging than The Curse of Strahd. Out of all the books I've ever come across, this is probably the most challenging book that I've seen them put out as an adventure book ever. And that's for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And I don't know what else to say other than the fact that I am shocked that a lot of this content has not really made its way onto the internet in a form that is digestible and easy to understand. Because there's a lot of really good aspects to this book. I hate to say it, I didn't really want to say that, but it's true. And then there are other aspects to it that make like no sense. One of the things that I certainly came to the conclusion when I was looking through this is that I think that the first part of the adventure, the concept of elturel and Baldur's Gate going to Avernus, I feel like you flick that. I know a lot of people were like, no, that's like the best bit. No, I actually think you should get rid of that and focus on one aspect of the whole story, and that is the redemption of Zariel, the fallen angel, and getting her sword back to her to strengthen Celestia rather than to undermine Avernus, because Avernus, there are plenty of devils and beasties waiting to take her place. So I think that's probably, I feel like the players would be much more open to the idea of the goal of this adventure is to redeem and bring back a fallen angel that has gone to hell. And that is your job. That is your task. I feel like I would be able to sell that idea to my players much more than anything else. Now, why do I say this? I am now off script, okay? I am going to get very, very, very clear, and I'm going to ask all the questions that dungeon masters need to ask themselves about this adventure. The first thing is, why did elturel go to Avernus? Like, how is it that it got sucked down? Now, there's an explanation here in the story. A deal was done. But the reality is, are you telling me that this particular contract that was made overrides the free will of every individual who lived in that city or is in that city when it gets pulled down. How did that work? Or did those individuals who weren't actually evil and, had a good soul and didn't take part in this, huge contract, which is supposed to be essentially a trick, did they all get left above ground and everybody else went down? Players are going to ask you these questions, okay? Then they're going to say, well, hang on, okay, so you're telling me that the evil soul, the evil people and the good people got dragged down with the city and they're all down in Avernus. But how is it that devils seem to have to make contracts with individuals and that actually getting hold of a soul is quite a difficult feat? This is what we have been brought up with. This is the culture that we've been brought up with. Actually, for a devil to actually get hold of your soul, it's actually quite difficult. And therefore, you have to agree. You can't just make a decision for somebody else. This is the hard sell to your players. Then look at the fact that, okay, all right, so only the evil people went down with elturel. And so only the evil people in Baldur's Gate will get sucked down to Avernus if Baldur's Gate goes down. Well, if they're evil, that's where they belong, right? Oh, no, hang on. No, there'll be some people who will say, yeah, but they can be redeemed. Not every soul is lost. Not yet. Not until they die. Not until they have, stepped over whatever that boundary is. Well, they might have already stepped over that boundary. So the concept behind this is that every soul is redeemable. I think that's what the designers are trying to go for. Okay, that no matter how bad things have got, everybody is redeemable. But can you sell that to your players? Not their characters. Can you sell that to your players and convince them that that's what they can work with? I think that will be a hard sell for people. I think they would really struggle with that. I think a lot of players will think, well, why should I care about these two cities? I'm just going to go somewhere else. Goodbye. See you later. Thank you very much. And your dungeon master sitting there with a book and they've never actually got to run anything. Just like it's gone. This is why I say ditch that. Another thing that you're going to find is this is the kind of adventure that will appeal to murder hobos or individuals who want to play evil characters. And the problem with people who want to play evil characters, not always the case, but often is that they are the gremlin, the spanner in the works, the individual who really is trying to mess things up. And they'll take things off script and just tear the campaign in half. Now, not every player is going to operate like that. There'll be some individuals who see this as an opportunity to, redeem people. But I would say that the vast majority aren't going to be necessarily thinking that way. They're not all going to be playing paladins, unless, of course, you have an entire group. Literally, there'll be somebody, right? There'll be somebody out there whose entire group are paladins, and they're probably all lawful good. We're going to do this. We're going to Avernus, and we're going to save these cities. But I feel like there are too many questions that get brought up that players will ask a dungeon master, and dungeon masters won't have a good response to, and will require you to do a lot of tippy-toeing and fancy footwork to make it all work. And even if you do all that fancy footwork, it still might not solve your problem. So that's why I am reluctant to say that this book is the book for you. What I'm going to say instead is that Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, I think if the topic and the concept appeals to you as a dungeon master, and it really appeals to your players, and you give them enough forewarning as to what's going on, which means that you're going to have to probably give a little bit of it away. So some of those twists and turns you may have to sort of partly reveal, maybe not completely, but partly reveal, then it's probably the right book for you. But I think everybody else probably not going to find the majority of this book hugely useful. Not unless you literally, like I say, chop off the front of the adventure and just use the Avernus section. You know, the section which actually takes place in hell itself. And, you know, look, you could consider elturel as part of, it's in hell when they come across it. So you can say, well, that's part of hell as well. Yeah, of course. But again, does it mean that you need to have the story revolve around trying to free the city so it can return to the surface? I think the strongest element of the story is the redemption of Zariel, that fallen angel. I think that's the thing you want to go with out of everything else. Otherwise, it's probably not the adventure book for you, and you want to pick up something else. That's my honest opinion with regard to this book. So I'm hoping that you found this useful. I have a lot of reviews that are live and are pre-recorded if you are interested on many aspects, many different adventures, not just Wizards of the Coast adventures. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters. So if you want to check them out, you're welcome to. They cover Dungeons & Dragons and Dungeons & Dragons 5e. I should have pretty much everything covered by now. Maybe I don't, but I'm pretty sure there is. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing video content like this, you can through Patreon, the Amazon affiliate links down in the description, the merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos, or just keep watching my videos. That's fine too. Make sure to do all the usual YouTube things. You know what I'm talking about. You know, share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live, because I go live every week. Okay, every week I go live, and I also release published, edited videos as well. So that's what you'll need the notification button for. Other than that, make sure to share, like, and subscribe. No, I've said that. No. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, this is Q&A, questions and answers, feedback. This is your opportunity to tell me that, Fred, you are wrong and you do not know what you're talking about, and you suck. I wouldn't get too carried away with all of that. I don't expect this video or live stream to be very popular. I found that the opinion on this adventure across the internet had those people who were clearly sponsored and had only good things to say, probably because they were getting paid. And then other people who had kind of partly gone into the issue as to what's going on that they weren't happy about, but they hadn't gone far enough. Look, literally, it did take me a long time to understand why this book upset me, because I felt like if they had got rid of the first part and hadn't tried to use Baldur's Gate as a marketing ploy, that the adventure would have been much better. Anyway, let's go hashtag question. Did I do it? Okay, my eyes aren't great today. Please. And that is that. Let's do this and then we'll put the in the. Whoa, sorry, almost hit somebody else's button there. We're going to pin this. I'm going to go through here. I'm going to see if my eyes are any good. You never know. You never know. Sometimes my eyes are good, sometimes they're not. Oh, that's working today. Ha! The glasses are working. Okay, right. Let's. So, is it iFan Richards? Hello, how's it going? Ben. Hello, Ben. What's your favorite D&D class? My favorite D&D class is the Wizard and the Monk. And I know that's polar opposites in terms of what people think, but I've been I was involved in the martial arts for years. I got my 3rd Dan black belt, so because of that, I kind of really like monks. I don't really care the fact that people think that they're underpowered and not very good. I've seen monks do amazing things. They are very difficult to destroy or kill, and they can be extremely useful in the right situation. I've seen a monk survive 9 red dragons on their own. I think they were level 14 or 15 for about 3 rounds. So seriously, very, very impressive as a class. Wizards, I like wizards because they're so complicated. And I know that sounds strange, But I do. I like wizards because it allows access to so many spells, and I like the idea that there's something that I can contribute. I am a big fan of ritual spells. That's why I like the wizard. Yeah. So that's my two favourites. Okay, Fender. Fender is a patron. Hello, Fender. How's it going? Wow8 is also a patron. Hello. And I didn't get a chance to say thank you because I know you increased your contribution, which is thank you very much. Of all the changes I made, I just watched the number of people who were patrons just disappear, and I think they think that I've changed what I'm going to produce on my channel, but it's actually just to try to get through all the book reviews that I'd been putting off for so long. We are going to return to some normalcy. It is coming. John Cartwright, how's it going? Dark Sun is a challenge to play in. Yes, it is. It's very much a challenge. It's a challenge to Dungeon Master. And I feel like something like this book and Avernus would be an extremely hard challenge to deal with for some people. Maybe not everybody, but I feel like if you're very experienced, you probably will be fine. But if you're not, you probably will struggle. Alec, how's it going? It's been a while. I remember you said you didn't like the subject matter and wouldn't review it. Yeah, I still don't like the subject matter. Okay? Alec, I don't like the subject matter, and the only reason I have reviewed it is because I sat down after a number of people said, look, are you going to do something with it? Are you going to do something with it? I looked at the book and I started going through it, and even with a book that I don't particularly like, I can see why there are some very good aspects to this book. That's why I did the review. And I also realized that a lot of people weren't really cutting to the chase. They weren't talking about the things that were, not necessarily, they always talk about the things that are really good, but they don't always talk about the things that are problematic. And fundamentally, when you look at this book, there are some things that are really problematic that you have to try and get your head around. And they're not completely obvious because it took me a little while to figure it out. And therefore, I wasn't completely sure exactly why it was. Was it because devils were involved? And I kind of shy away from using devils too often. That's not to say that I don't have devils in my campaigns, but they come up very, very rarely. I do not use them a lot. I felt like the designers were trying to push the characters into being, grey, rather than, on the light side. They were trying to push them in that direction. And that I didn't like either. I felt like they were trying to shoehorn players a particular way. And I didn't like the way that it was trying to introduce players to the adventure. I don't like the idea of taking a great huge hammer and saying, guess what, if you don't play ball, I'm going to kill your character. I didn't like that. And I stand by that. I still don't like that idea. Okay. I haven't managed to get a thumbs down yet. Give it time. Kevin, I liked the secrets in Rime of the Frost Maiden better. Yeah, I can understand that. There's so much that, look, you could say there are 3 or 4 layers to the secrets that are provided. What I like about the dark secrets is they're built around the party. So the whole group are tied into this dark secret, and it's the same dark secret just from a different angle. And I thought that was very, very interesting. I liked that aspect. But then there were parts within there that sort of indicated that maybe they were a loner, which I thought were like, well, why is that there? I like the idea of group connections. So that was my biggest draw to the dark secrets. There are two that I thought were very good. I thought actually that the strongest one is the desire to bring the flaming fists to justice, to actually stamp out their corruption. But if you do that, do you know what's going to happen? The rest of the story falls away. In fact, if they start pursuing that avenue as a dungeon master and you're like, what do? I want to get them back on track. Look, let them just stamp out the flaming fists. Let's let them continue that path and forget about the rest of it. Forget about Avernus and all the rest. Okay? Just let it go. And you can consider that a campaign for another day or some other time. All right, Mike G. How's it going, Mike? Hello from Canada, Fred. I just showed my players this book last night to see what the reaction, would be in terms of interest. Great to see you. Your live discussion. Live discussing it now. Yeah. Look, Mike. I would like to know what your players' reaction was to seeing this, because from the cover, I think that the players would like to play it. But once they find out what this, the how it starts, they're probably not going to like it. If you tell them you're going to the Nine Hells to redeem a fallen angel and reclaim her magic sword and redeem her, I think they would like, sweet. And you're telling me I'm going to get to ride around on war machines like Mad Max? Sweet. But if they really knew what the story was, I don't think they would be very happy. But Mike, I would love to know what their response was. I bet it's exactly what I just talked about. I bet their response is they think they are trying to redeem a fallen angel. They will probably have no interest in what happens to these two cities whatsoever. Overboard DM, that's Joe. Joe's got a channel, does miniatures, terrain, stuff like that, reviews. It is crazy. Yes, the adventure is definitely absolutely crazy. Jesse Richards, had the book for a while, still have to have my players play it. I'm excited for it, but I still need to get my players more immersed into D&D first. Yeah, I do not. So Jesse, what you're saying is exactly how I think. I think if you're starting off as a dungeon master and players, you probably want to play something like The Lost Mine of Phandelver or something else that's sort of very much a very, vanilla Dungeons and Dragons, very basic. Even Dragon of Ice by Peak is fine. It's fine. I think Lost Mine of Phandelver is stronger. Yes, you can combine the two. And then, when you're ready and I think once they've played through and dealt with the Curse of Strahd, I think that is probably a better choice. I am biased towards the Curse of Strahd, for those of you who don't know, because usually every month I do a live stream on the Curse of Strahd. I just haven't been doing that because I'm doing all these book reviews. And then I think if they can get through the Curse of Strahd and they like that, you might be able to get them into something like Descent into Avernus. You might be able to take that next step. But I don't think it's something you want to start out with. I know I think there's one comment that talked about making Descent into Avernus your first adventure. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good idea. Hello, West Coast Geeks. How's it going? June, how's it going? Oh, whoa. That's saying a lot. I am saying a lot. I have said a lot. Didn't I say a lot? I thought I did. Yeah, look. So West Coast Geeks, I can totally understand you sitting there trying to figure out how to run this thing. Because it's not really that obvious how to deal with it. And I'm frankly not the right person to do that, to give you advice around it. One, because I'm not invested enough. And two, I feel like it would be too much work. And three, I feel like this book is a rite of passage. If you decide to run it, it's because you're ready. And if you're not ready, then don't run it. And just keep waiting. There's time. There's still time. Hi, June. What do you got here? Note the book for me. Not the book for me then. Yep. But there are so many other adventure books, so no worries, I guess. Thanks for your honest review and advice. Glad I had heard it before I tackle a book into yeah, it is not for noobs. It's not for somebody starting out, June. And I mean, you've been on my channel before, I'm pretty sure. So I wouldn't say you're completely new, but that is you make that assessment, not me. I don't know how much time you've actually spent dungeon mastering and what you've run through so far. Hydroxia. Hopefully I got that right. What was your most favourite part from the Avernus campaign when playing or hosting it? I never played or hosted this adventure. This is based on me going through and reading the adventure. Okay? So if you thought this review was based on somebody who actually ran the adventure, no, I haven't done that. And I probably never will. I think the only chance that I will ever do anything with this is if my characters or my players wind up having a total party kill and they wind up in Avernus. I decide, because their characters are all pretty naughty. If they're naughty characters, then I'll probably stick them in the 9 hells. And then I would reveal this storyline and go from there. I would save this adventure for that time when everything goes to pot and your whole party gets wiped out and they've all been playing murder hobo evil characters or chaotic neutral, which, as you know, chaotic neutral is often just an excuse for trying to do whatever you want. Okay, all right, Mike, what do you got here? Fred, after stream follow-up comment here. I'm a beginner DM and I won the book from a podcast contest. Good to know it is for experts. Yes, it definitely is. I might trade it for someone for an easier adventure book. Yeah, I think that's probably a better idea, is trade it in. Get something else, okay? Come back to it later on if it's still available, because it seems to be quite hard to find. Quinatine Turner. Oh, hopefully I got your name right. Look, I apologise. I was on the verge of deciding I might cancel because I haven't been that well. Question: I have heard the encounters in Avernus can be really tough. Oh yes, oh yeah. I didn't even bother commenting on the combat stuff. No, they are bat crazy hard. Like I said, this is for experienced players. It is not for intermediate and beginners. You've picked the wrong thing if that's what you're trying to do. Did you find that to be true? If so, why? It's because you're dealing with devils. You're dealing with devils, and you're dealing with them, I guess, not that early on, but the reality is you're dealing with individuals that are significantly more powerful than them. I mean, the Archfiend, Zariel, is very, very dangerous. Okay? Even if they are level 13 when they face her. And hopefully they don't have to fight her. Hopefully it just comes down to having a conversation and handing her sword. And she takes it. But that might not happen. Scott McLee, I agree, Fred. I keep my D&D as the heroes are good heroes, not yeah, I know what you mean, Scott. I understand where you're coming from. Slice of Scott. McLay. I think that's Scott McLay. Slice of Scott, what do you got here? Thanks for the honest review. Since the books are so demanding in terms of preparation and time to play through, I'm always skeptical about them. Appreciate you giving us the real lowdown. Yeah, a lot of the Wizards of the Coast books require a lot of effort on your part. They're really not that easy to run. And I will talk about books that are easier to run. But yeah, we're coming to the... Look, Eberron is probably the last one I'll do for a while until the new books come out. and it'll take me a little while to get them because I'm in New Zealand and there's a pandemic. Okay. Mike G. Fred, my players were all interested in playing to answer your question. Just by looking at the first few pages and the artwork, I bet. But if they find out that they are starting in Baldur's Gate, will they still feel that way? I kind of wonder if they still feel that way, whether they'd be invested. I think to a large extent, if your players decide, look, we're going to play all good characters, shining lights, and we'll follow the whole storyline because we want to redeem everybody, we want to save the archfiend Zariel, we want to mess with the devil's world, and we are not going to be corrupted. I think a group that builds that kind of start would probably do pretty well. But that's not really what's presented in the adventure itself, as you know, Mike. So you kind of need them and yourself to do all that work. Slice of Scott. If Avernus had been a 40-page module, it'd be far more apt to run it. Yeah. Look, and I think they have. I think Wizards of the Coast has failed to understand that the older modules, we used to call them modules, right? Adventures were modules or adventure modules. And they were about 35 to 40 pages long. They were pretty easy to digest. They weren't that hard to follow. They often would leave sections for you to fill in. And they made it clear that it was there to be filled in. They didn't just sort of assume you would figure it out. And I think that they have lost a lot by doing that. I also think that there's a market for just having, like I said, very, very short adventures, and they could work quite well. Could this adventure be broken up into pieces? To a certain degree it could. I wouldn't say that it breaks up as well as some other adventures. I feel like Rime of the Frost Maiden breaks up very nicely. This book, not quite so well. Is that Lewis 3? There was a illustration in one of the older books, a Paladin in Hell. The image has haunted me. I want this book. So this is the thing. I mean, I made a jest and joke that maybe if you had a whole party of paladins and clerics, and frankly, a whole party of paladins and clerics, even if they multi-classed, might actually be a really smart idea. It really might be a very smart idea, rather than trying to play the grey line. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe you forward it to your party and say, like, this is the concept of the story. What do you think about an all-paladin party? You know, I think that it's quite likely that you could get a group of players to do that, just because they'd be good at a lot of different things. You can make a dex build paladin. You make a strength build paladin. You can make a casting paladin and just go charisma and sorcerer. You know, there are ways of making that happen. So it can be done. A homebrew or two, yeah. Homebrew or two, yeah. I'm not sure what that means. I'm a little bit lost. Mason Knight, how's it going? Been a while. Playing our first session of Descent Descent tonight. I'm playing my first Blade Singer. Oh gosh, I love the wizard spells. I bet you do. Blade Singer is one of those things that I have not let be played at my table because I know what Simon could do with the Blade Singer. he tells me that he wouldn't do that, but Banishment and Simulacrum have become popular recently, so I think that's unlikely. So yeah, there are a few wizard subclasses that are just nuts. Our DM chose this campaign for us, so here we go. Thanks for the encouraging review. Laugh out loud. Yeah, well, I guess I haven't given you too many spoilers. I have given you sort of the gist of what's going on, so hopefully he doesn't get upset that you've been watching this video. It should be obvious when you see review that you might get spoilers. But anyway. All right, Fender, question. Will you talk about Dragon Heist? Fender, I think I already have. Is it not available? Have you not found it on my channel? I could swear that I talked about Dragon Heist. That I actually did a flip through and discussion. Are you talking about? Am I going to do like a live stream? I mean, hang on. Let's go. Dragon Heist. Let's have a look on my channel. Oh, apparently no. Oh, hang on. Maybe I spelt the word wrong. That's what it is. Let me try it again. There we go. All right. Okay. So, to give you an idea of what a deep Dragon Heist flip through. So there is an edited version, and there is what is that? I feel like there's two, or there's two. Is there two? There's two. Live stream and then edited version. The timing on it's all whacked up. That's what it is. So the edited version of Dragon Heist is actually not 1 hour and 9 minutes and 20 seconds. YouTube, get your shite together. The live stream is 1 hour and 9 minutes and 20 seconds. I did a live stream flip through of it. And then there's a shorter version, and that is edited. But it doesn't look like it's edited on my channel because YouTube is silly. So I've already done that. I've already done Dragon Heist. Mike, thanks again, Fred. I hope you feel better soon. Gonna run. Yeah, I gotta get going too. I've got a Dungeon Master Roundtable to sort out. Like, you guys will eventually see them on my channel. But I'm waiting till I go on leave to do that. I was going to be going on leave in August, but they told me I had to wait till September. So that means I want to take all of the guys' faces and I want to stick them in places they should not be. I've already warned them that this is going to happen. But hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ones that I've shown you in the community tab from AJ Pickett on his channel, and Dungeon Dad, and Wally DM, and Dungeon Class, and Roll4 Initiative, and No Fun Allowed, and who else is there? They go on. There's a few of us. There's a lot of us. So my stuff will start to come up. You'll see them eventually. Table 1SG. Hello. I remember that image as well. Now, I know you were looking forward to this review. You did mention in the comments section on the community tab that you were looking forward. Like I said, I have good things to say about it and bad things to say about it. But I still feel like it is the sort of adventure that is designed for experienced people who are really ready for those sorts of topics and that level of complexity. Scott, I really hate ragging on this product. Yeah. Definitely the most interesting area for an adventure as of now. I love the idea of the book. Too bad it fell flat. Look, Scott, let's make it clear. A book like Descent into Avernus, okay, was trying to do so much and be so out there that it couldn't possibly succeed, okay? I don't think it would have mattered if somebody else had tried to make this. I don't think it would matter if Wizards of the Coast weren't part of the production of it. Okay? They have good designers and good artists, but I don't think it would have solved the problem. I think the problem is they're trying to do too much. And as you know, if you've been dungeon mastering for a while, it is sometimes much better to make your general story simple, rather than going for huge levels of complexity. And that is unfortunately what takes place here. Because the more complex, the more things you have to explain as to why it happened that way. This is what happens in storybooks, novels, movies struggle with it constantly. Nowadays, they don't seem to know how to build a story in the movie industry without doing flashbacks and revolving things round and putting things in the front that should be in the back, and sequencing's all out, and they're trying to be artistic and and surprise people. When frankly, really their story was pretty poor to begin with. Even when you take it all, how they deliver it, it didn't work. But anyway, I don't think it is unfair to say that this book had tried to do something that the Wizards of the Coast team hadn't done. I don't think I've seen them do this ever. I think this is their first attempt at doing something very, very ambitious. Very ambitious. Fendar. Yes. Oh, yes, you did. Yeah. Okay, you found it. Good. No, you're not bad, Fendar. It's all good. I did check to make sure I'd done a review on that. Overboard DM. I've got my fingers crossed that the new Dragon book comes out will be good. I did pre-order it and in a hardback and a digital on D&D Beyond. Ah, yes. Now the new book that's coming, well, there's 3 new books, but I think the Dragon book is going to be the one that people really want the most. Although I think the Witchlight one is going to be very, very interesting. I think it's going to be very interesting. I am interested to see what they have come up with. Simply because one of the best campaigns I ever ran, the players were part of a circus, so a carnival would be just up my tree, Having all said that, terrible things, would probably still pick it up. Yeah, well, maybe pick it up later on. Maybe consider it something to try in the future, and you don't have to run it as it is. Like I said, I think that you would find that just taking the one aspect of the story is probably the smartest route. Get them to Avernus fast. Don't muck around in Baldur's Gate. Bokanom. I have found that many times less is more. Yes, less is more. Absolutely. Okay, I got to get going. If I don't stop talking, I won't be able to talk in the next thing, which is going to be on in about, I've got to do it in about 40 minutes, less than that. And I will get myself into a lot of trouble. So I really better pack it up. So thank you for everybody who showed up. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me. Thank you for those of you who watch my stuff, particularly my live streams, because usually YouTube doesn't like live stream content because people don't normally watch from the very beginning to the very end. It's a long time to watch for, right? So thank you for doing that. And so wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the night, the afternoon, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. Keep safe. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Almost forgot. We're probably going to be doing the Herbalist kit next week. Herbalist kit next week. I think.